So we've done PC builds before. We did the Mac Pro killer for what, third of the price. We did the budget workstation build. This time we've done a build for someone who takes video editing seriously and wants an absolute beast of a machine for rendering and creative work like that. So let me introduce you this guy. And before we roll the intro, let me just say that if you were to configure the same performance specs on a Mac Pro, you would be spending over 15 grand. In our case, not even close, okay? I'm not sure what to name this guy, but maybe an orange beast. Absolutely sweet of a machine. Do you know what else is sweet? Saving money with honey. So if you don't know this already, this is the third part of this series about this PC. On the first one, we actually built this PC. So if you want to build this exact PC, you can check out that video. On the second video, I explained my thinking behind every single part and why I think this is a good part to go for, and some of the alternatives if you want to save money or upgrade or things like that. So if you want to check these two parts out, they will be very, very useful as well. They're long videos, but there's a lot of good information out there. I reckon this one is going to be quite long as well. And now this is the third part where we're actually looking at more like the review of this build, where I'm talking about you know, the good sides and the bad sides, the upgradabilities, thermals, CPU benchmarks, different you know, GPU benchmarks, SSD benchmarks, so how well does it perform and things like that. Now if for some reason you haven't checked the other parts out and this is the first part you're watching, let me tell you the specs of this PC so you kind of get a bit of an overview of what's going on in here. So for a CPU, we have the Ryzen 9 3950X, which is a 16-core, 32-thread processor. Now I know you'll be watching this and you're saying, hey, why are you using last-gen Ryzen processors? Because new processors have come out. Now there's 5000 series 5950X processor, which it could be up to 20% better, and that is true. Now, if you have the money, I have no doubt that you're going to get an absolutely better performance when going with that processor, and this is a good option to upgrade to that. And I don't want to talk too much into that, but in this case, the new processors have been launched, which means this processor is even cheaper, which means you're going to get even more value for your money. So let's move on. We've got 128 gigabytes of 3200 megahertz RAM, absolutely maxed out, as much as this platform can handle. As a GPU, we are running the RTX 2080 Ti Founders Edition over there. The motherboard is an Aorus X570 Ultra. For the storage configuration, we have a 3-part storage system going on. We have a 1 terabyte PCI 4.0 SSD Sabre Rocket. We have 2 project or cache SSDs there. They are both 512 gigabytes each. They are PCIe 3.0 SSDs, but they're a bit fancy because they're liquid cooled. Now for the power supply, we're running a 1000 watt Corsair power supply, and for the case, this is a Be Quiet Pure Base 500DX case. Oh, I forgot to mention that also the CPU cooler is a Be Quiet Dark Rock Pro 4. So it's a Be Quiet theme going on here a little bit. Let me say you're writing this into the comments and finding this out in the comments. I paid 2.7k for this machine, and you know, depending on the part, you can get it even cheaper, but roughly about 2.7 thousand pounds. This is here in the UK. In the US, it's probably, you know, slightly more expensive because of the, you know, conversion of the things, maybe 3 grand, a bit more, things like that. So check out the parts below if you want to you know, find out the exact pricing. By the way, everything I'm talking about over here, all the parts and things like that, they were linked below with probably some of the alternatives to help you out as well if you want to save some money or upgrade to something better, you know, like a newer GPUs or CPUs, then check them out below. Now before we can talk about the performance, I'd like to talk about the looks, because this is something that is, for me at least, very eye-catching. There is a black and orange theme going on, and hopefully you can catch the vibe from this actual shot as well. Everything is orange and black. I'm not wearing a pajama, it's actually a t-shirt, but it's a little bit odd. It's a bit of an older t-shirt, but I just had to wear something orange. I know everything apart from the GPU looks orange and black, which is absolutely sick. We've got the sleeved cables over here. There is this orange kind of strip going down, RGB in the front of the case. There's a little RGB strip in the case as well, already built in the case. And everything is just black and orange apart from this GPU. And at first I was like, man, I'd really like to get the GPU looking orange as well. And apparently, if you didn't know that, NVIDIA, these are like LEDs inside the GPU are actually RGB LEDs, but they're kind of limited to software only show green as an LED. There is a way to hack it, but you might kind of make your GPU into a lemon, so I didn't risk doing that. If you want to see how someone's done it, or like a version how you can do it, I'll leave some information below where you can look more into that. But I left it green, and now after I've left it green, I think it's a really good accent of green there, kind of something that really brings your eyes to it, or just grabs attention, says, hey, RTX GeForce over here. So, and it's not too bad because there are some actually silver bits on the motherboard as well, so it kind of fits in the theme as well, so not too much out of the color theme. So looks, I am super happy about the looks. Let me know in the comments below if you're enjoying this, and hit that like if you enjoy this look. But now let's talk about the actual performance. So CPU benchmarks. Let's have a look at the Cinebench R20 at first. Orange and black, that's what I call this over here. I've got a few other like kind of PCs laid out, or some kind of reference specs in there as well. If there's no score, then I couldn't find it online. So as you can see, our PC over here, that is the orange and black PC, is obviously the best in the list, but the 3950X Mac Pro Killer was the Mac Pro Killer that we built before, but I upgraded the CPU if you're not up to date with that. And then these are the scores over there. Getting slightly better single core performance on that PC, which is very interesting. But you know, I would say they're pretty much exactly the same, because 1% is roughly the error of the test, and depends when you're doing the test. I could get the same of this or that one, but I'm quite happy that actually even the multi-core is slightly better on this one than on the other one. So it just shows that, you know, sometimes the chips that come from the factory can perform slightly differently. The 16-core Mac Pro, if we actually, you know, compare core to core with the Mac Pro, it is about 27% slower on the multi-core performance, and single core is probably even more, because the Intel Xeon processors aren't as good on the single core performance. And the 12-core Mac Pro is even worse, and we're not even including the base model 8-core Mac Pro, which would be even further down there. As you can see, it is further there. Now the red and black PC was the budget workstation build that we built over there with the 3600X 6-core Ryzen processor, and as you can see, the single core holds up very well. It's right up there, but the obviously multi-core is 60% slower. So if you really want some good rendering stuff happening, then this processor is much better. And just for the reference, one of the other things is like one of the old Dell XPS 15 laptops from 2018 that I was using, giving you a comparison of that, as well as my PC that I had previously. So before I built my Ryzen workstation, I was running an Intel-based build with an Intel i7 5820K processor, and that was overclocked to 4 gigahertz. And as you can see, we've come a long way since then. So that was probably around 5 years ago. So from 5 years ago, we've almost quadrupled the performance specs. Okay, maybe 3 times, more than 3.5 times better PCs over here, which is amazing. Now looking at Geekbench 5 benchmarks over here, there was a few more specs out there, and we were able to find every single Mac Pro kind of spec from the 2019, the cheese grater Mac Pro. So if anyone's kind of comparing, oh, shall I go Mac or PC? I hope I can show you that you can save a lot of money by going PC, depending obviously what you're doing. And you know, there's always arguments both ways, but I'm hoping to show you that if you're using, like, you know, Blender or Cinema 4D or Adobe products or DaVinci Resolve that are across platform, then it kind of makes little sense to go with Windows, because it's the program stability that matters more than the OS stability. Completely another video, but that's my opinion. Feel free to have a different opinion, but That's what I'm trying to show you over here, that it is an absolute beast of a monster over here with some of the benchmarks going on on the screen over here. Even the single core is still about 15% better on this one than on the 28 core Mac Pro. But if you have a look at how much these processors cost from Apple to actually upgrade, then even if we go with 24 core processor, which over here is 20% better on multi-core performance, then just that the CPU on its own without any of the other upgrades, it costs so much more than the whole PC build that we have over here. So the price to performance value is just ridiculous on this one over here. Absolutely beast of a machine. So if you want to spend some more time looking at the benchmarks over here, then just feel free to pause it and check them out. So now let's look over to the GPU performance over here. This is an RTX 2080 Ti, which is obviously last gen NVIDIA graphics cards, and it's an absolute beast of a guy. If you want to know exactly why I chose this one, then check out the part 2. I don't want to spend too much time on this over here because lately the videos tend to be very long. But looking at the Geekbench GPU performances, so there's CUDA, OpenCL and Vulkan performances over here. Interestingly enough, comparing it to Vulkan, I don't know what happened, and I haven't looked too much into what does the Vulkan actually test, but the Vulkan score over here for this RTX 2080 Ti is so much better than anything else out there. I think I just literally scored like first on the GPU list, which I don't know quite, is there like a glitch on the benchmark, which is a little bit odd, but even the RTX 3090 was 4% slower, which is a little bit odd. 3080 was, 30% slower, but Vulkan over there. But you can see that even on the OpenCL or CUDA, we're holding up a lot. Now, if you want to look at why exactly I went with this card, like I mentioned before, check out the part 2. Or if you want to check out like what's the performance of these graphics cards on Premiere Pro, for example, then check out my breakdown on Premiere Pro, why these cards I think are the best value now when people are selling their old graphics cards. You can see that there isn't that much of a difference on Premiere Pro, for example. Check it out over there, which GPU you should be getting for Premiere Pro if you're building a PC for Premiere Pro. There is, interestingly enough, AMD Radeon Pro Vega Duo, which is something that you can buy from the Apple website, or like upgrade to it. And if you want to upgrade to it, it is $5 grand, which is ridiculous. And as you can see, our card over here just whoops it, no problem. So is the Radeon 7. Our GPU here is absolutely awesome price to performance value and performs very, very well. Now, depending on your program, make sure that if you want to use the GPU over there, you can utilize a lot of the GPU. Make sure it's not CPU, but GPU based utilization on the program. But now in our case, I think it's like a best of kind of general worlds, or both worlds. If you need the GPU to be utilized, you've got a beast of a thing over there. If you need the CPU to be utilized, you've got a beast of a CPU over there as well. Next up, we have a look at the SSDs, which is like where the OS runs and when you have your project drive or cache drive or things like that. So how fast are they? Now, I put the 1 terabyte Sabre Rocket PCIe 4 drive as the OS drive because we want all the programs, all the OS to load as fast as possible and to be ridiculously fast. The read speed for that drive is 5 gigabytes per second, okay? 5,000 megabytes read speed and 4,200 megabytes write speed. So ridiculous read and write speeds. And then the T-Force Cardia Liquid, which is the liquid cooled SSDs down there. Very fancy looking, awesome, looking SSDs over there. They are 3,000 up to 3,000 to 3,100 megabytes read speed and 2,400 megabytes per second write speed. Now, in our case, obviously, one of the drives, or the SSDs, M.2 drives, is slightly bottlenecked by the motherboard because the motherboard can't give full, or the chipset or the CPU can't give like a full speed access to the third M.2 SSD that's on below. So that drive is kind of limited to 1,600 megabytes per second read and write speed, even though it can go faster. But 1,600 megabytes per second is still plenty fast. It's still 3 times faster than any SATA SSDs that you can plug in on this PC, so still very, very fast. So in conclusion, the performance of the SSDs, GPU and CPU, which are the kind of main things that contribute to your video or creative work or rendering work. I am super happy. They're super fast, very, very awesome. Hopefully you can have some comparison over there. If you want to do these tests yourself and compare it to this one, you can do that as well. These SSD tests were done on a Crystal Mark score, so this is available on Mac and PC if you want to check these out. But not just like on paper performance, but actually trying to do some editing or trying to open the programs or putting the PC on. It is blazing fast. It's like rapid. It's just, I can't really explain this until you actually just test it yourself and you see, wow, okay, this is fast. So let's talk about thermals. It's important to keep our PC cool when doing long, edits or workloads, or it's going to perform better if the thermals are low. Now, the case has a very good airflow. In fact, very, very good airflow, okay? The whole front of this basically is mesh. We have 2 fans in the front, intaking the air, blowing the air in over here. We have 2 fans exhausting, one from the top pushing the hot air up, as well as another one pushing the air out from the back. Now this one in the very back over here is an extra fan that I've added, and this is more performance fan, so it's a bit more powerful, exhausting the hot air out, because we want all the hot air to get out as much as possible. Also, I've configured so that the PSU fan is on the top, which means that it's going to pull the air from within the case and pull it down and push it out from the back. So it kind of acts as an exhaust as well, but it doesn't always come on, and it only comes on when it gets hot. So it pulls the air and then pushes it down over there. So also there is 2 fans on the CPU cooler, which actually kind of act as exhaust as well, because they're further back and they push it towards the back rather than intake, if you know what I mean. So they push the warm air along the case over there. Now, I did a test where I was running the CPU and GPU on a full utilization. So the CPUs was used max and the GPU was used as max as possible. So everything was maxed out basically, and just wanted to see like how well do the thermals take. So basically after about 15 or 20 minutes, I reckon it's like 18-20 degrees Celsius inside the room where I was testing it. After 15-20 minutes, the CPU was 74 C and the GPU was around 80 to 84 C, so it kept like going up and down in that range type of thing. So even though the GPU was being quite a lot hotter than the CPU, like over 10 C, it didn't actually heat up the CPU that much, because the airflow was that good and the whole airflow kept, kind of cooling the GPU down as well, which was very, very impressive for me. Now, it's important to mention that obviously the manufacturer says a liquid cooler is required or recommended for this CPU because it's so, hot, whatever. As you can see, I don't believe that is the case at all. You can easily get away with like a beefier air cooler, and this over here is not like the best air cooler on the market. Like the Noctio Chroma Max NHD 15 is much better at cooling the CPU than this one. Well, much better in brackets. It is better. How much better is, I'm not sure if you can say much better, but it's better. But this one still does a very, very, very good job and is more than adequate at cooling any workloads as possible. Now, if you're in a small room and the room gets hot eventually, that obviously is going to affect your thermals in here. But if you're in a normal room temperature, I reckon, between 18 to 22 degrees or something like that, it is completely perfectly fine, absolutely good thermals, not even close to the limit, over there. The CPU limit, by the way, is like 95, but I wouldn't recommend running your CPU like even on 88 or something like that. That wouldn't be good either. But if you keep it within the 70s, you're fine. Next of all, we should talk about the upgradability of this system. How much can you upgrade and how much of this is, upgradable, things like that. Now, I know that AMD has come out with the new processors since then, since building this, and I knew this and I counted this into the system build, because now, first of all, if you want to get the old CPU, it's more bang for buck because it's probably going to go down in value, so you can get it cheaper. And if you want to, you can completely put in the new CPU 5000 series AMD processors, which are 50X I think will be the best CPU that you can get for this, which is a 16 core and 32 thread the same kind of process as this one, but they've utilized it much better and put it together so it can be much faster. So if you want to, you can upgrade it, that no problem. The motherboard will support that, and the rest of the components support that as well. So if you want to upgrade the rest of the things, let's see what can you upgrade. In terms of RAM, the RAM is absolutely maxed out in terms of the gigabyte capacity. You could upgrade the speed of the RAM, like 3600 megahertz or something like that. But at our point, the manufacturer said, or AMD says on the 3950X processor, that it's the best supported RAM is 3200 megahertz. So we went with that one. I don't think you're gonna get massively upgraded performance when you go to 3600 megahertz. The GPU, you can upgrade, okay? So this is a very beefy one over there, and depends if your programs can utilize it, and if you want to upgrade it, you can put another RTX 2080 Ti in there, and the power supply can still support it. That's why we went with a very powerful power supply. So if you want to upgrade any of the parts, it's kind of like no problem. You don't need to pull the power supply and start pulling all the rest of the cables out. Just add a few more cables, and then you sorted, you know, slot the next GPU in, put it in, and you'll be sorted if you want to run it on, you know, SLI or something like that. Because of this case, there is quite a lot of actually upgrades in terms of other SATA SSDs and hard drives. Now in the front over there, you can see there is 2 actual slots in front where you can add hard drives, well actually SSDs. They're meant for 2.5-inch SSD drives, so you could put them over there. The other 2 can go in the back of the case over there, which is very good as well. So 4 2.5-inch SSD drives, or actually 6, because on the bottom over there, there is 2 hard drive bays which are 3.5-inch, but you could also install, you know, 2.5-inch drives in there as well if you wanted to. In terms of SSDs on the motherboard, the M.2 slots have all been occupied in our case, so there is 3 M.2 slots on the motherboard. Obviously you can add another PCIe like extension thing where you can add more M.2 drives, but you know, that's up to you. But in our case, in this configuration, these are the upgrade options for the hard drives or storage. Another thing that you might, or some people really need as an upgrade, is a 10 gigabit Ethernet. Now this motherboard does not have it built in, and not a lot of motherboards actually have the 10 gigabit Ethernet built in. Most of them are 1 gigabit and then 2.5 gigabytes. There's maybe like a handful of motherboards that have 10 gigabit Ethernet built in, and that's what we used on our Mac Pro killer PC, which was the MSI X570 Prestige Creation motherboard. But this doesn't fit in our themed color build, and we don't actually need 10 gigabit Ethernet in our case, or the person who's getting this PC doesn't need that. So you can easily add that later if you want through a PCIe slot over there. So just add the card in, and then you'll get the 10 gigabit Ethernet in the back if you need it for your NAS or other creative storage workflow. The last thing I'd like to talk about is the build quality. I know it's a little bit funny because, hey, you made this PC, you built this PC. How can you like talk about build quality about your own kind of creation? But still, I kind of want to talk about, because certain components I was like, whoa, this is kind of impressively good quality, and some of the components I was like, do you know what? I did not expect it to feel or look that cheap or that kind of low quality. So generally the good quality is like the motherboard, the RAM, GPU and CPU. Obviously there's no problem with that. And the cables, the sleeve cables from the thermal take, absolutely awesome. The other bits that I was kind of like a little bit, let's say slightly disappointed in the build quality was the Be Quiet stuff. So the Be Quiet case, the cooler, and the fan. There was a few things that I just want to, you know, point out that I think I was expecting a little bit more. Let's start with the fan, which is the smallest thing, okay? The fan that came with it, this is a Pure Wings 2 a performance, you know, fan. It's up to 1600 RPM. The funny thing is, the fan is all black, but it comes with silver screws, which is like, doesn't make any sense to me, and I just found it a bit like, so I had to like find some other fan screws, because there wasn't any other fan screws that came with the case, so I couldn't add any more. I found some other black screws to use for the fan, so I wasn't happy about that. Another thing was the cooler. Just when using the cooler materials and how the cooler just is, it doesn't feel like a very solid kind of material. The plastic two knobs where you can, you know, go in and install your cooler, it weren't as solid. They felt a little bit odd. The fans within the CPU cooler, they can move a little bit up and down, and sometimes, you know, when you move the PC, they've slanted slightly down because the fan clips aren't as strong to hold the fan completely intact. As well as when the CPU cooler, sorry, is completely installed and the fans have been tightened to the maximum, the CPU cooler still slightly wobbles around, and I'd like to get a little bit more grip to hold it our back of the motherboard bracket. Especially like the fan cables as well, compared to Noctua, they're nicely sleeved. It just feels a bit more quality, whereas these were like, whoa, felt very cheap plasticky metals, and I was expecting a little bit more, you know. I understand that they've tried to save money on it as much as possible to create the best product, but at this point, you know, I'm thinking, you know, Noctua was a much better quality product when I was using this. So when you go for Noctua Chroma Black, the NHD15 cooler, for example. And last of all, this case, it looks absolutely fantastic, but I don't think this is very good build quality. Now, let me explain. I completely understand this, that this could be like a one-off in the production line or a bit of a lemon. So, you know, bear that in mind and take this with a pinch of salt, you know. But it's worth always, when you get one, just look out for these things and just see, do I have these same problems? You know, if you do, maybe get another one, or if you don't, you know, okay, it's solid. So first of all, this glass, right? It has like painted black strips over here, and these painted black strips haven't been painted properly. So when you turn the glass the other way and kind of try to look through the black ribbons, you can see that there's like little scratches or little things already on the painted bit of the glass that shine through. Obviously you don't recognize this, or you don't notice it on your actual build, but it's just something that you're like, there's a few corners been cut over there. Next of all the screws for the like fixings, whether it's the PCIe slots or the power supply over there, or the actual back case or things like that, they feel a little bit like, am I over threading them? And they don't go into the holes as nicely, and you have to use a little bit more force, and you're afraid of over threading the screws. In the front of the case, you can actually see it on this angle over here. On this point over here, there's like a little bit of like a rust or something going on in this area. The same was on that side somewhere over there, like the front panel, which is actually like metal. A little bit of the paint was scratched off, and it was slightly like rusty around it, which was a bit odd. Okay, and the last thing is that this front panel, if you want to remove it to, you know, clean the dust filter that's underneath there, it comes off with such big force that you're afraid to break it. Okay, you pull it off, there's no like a nice easy way of having it. It just comes off very, very, very hard. Every time I've taken it off, I'm like, man, I'm sure this is gonna break this time. And so I wish there was like a better way of taking the front panel off. And I understand that it's probably done because they want to keep the connections of the LED lights over there very, you know, well intact, so that the LED lights still would work. One good thing about this case, apart from good thermals and good looks, is that it is quite wide, which means that in the back of the case there is a lot of room for cables. I put, you know, because I have sleeve cables as well as the, you know, PSU cables. I thought, man, how am I going to fit all these cables there, especially like the ATX motherboard cable over there? It easily fit behind there, and I was like, whoa, very surprised how much space there is behind the motherboard. So that's like a good thing if you want to do cable organizing and things like that. Another thing I want to talk about is the motherboard Wi-Fi antenna, and it has a magnet on the bottom, so you can actually slot the you know, Wi-Fi antenna, or it actually clips to anything in the case, which is absolutely fantastic. Other than that, the PC is very quiet. It's actually on at this point, and even on full like belt or full, you know, performance, it is quite loud. The GPU fans, they are the ones that make the most noise, but the case fans and the CPU fans, they're very quiet. So I'm quite happy about how quiet the whole system is. Now, if you want to go with a different case or a different CPU cooler, I'm gonna leave some options below, so feel free to check them out. So this is like the review of this entire system build, and now I am very happy generally with this build. Honestly, like, I think it's 9.5 out of 10. It is seriously good in performance, quietness, thermals, aesthetics, the looks. It is fantastic build and it performs fantastically, as well as giving you a very good performance to value ratio, so you get a lot for your money. So that's it, guys. All the links for everything I talked about are in the description. If you want to check it out, feel free to check out the other 2 parts of this series as well. Thank you very much, guys, for watching. Hit that like button, it actually makes a difference. Subscribe if you haven't already, or if you don't want to miss any of the future videos about certain topics or things like that. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I'll meet you down there, and don't forget, check out the honey. Yeah, it's in the description below. Thanks, guys, for watching. See you soon.